Hello there, welcome to Mindful MX365. I'm Justin McBride, and this is the daily series where we consider quotes, concepts, and contradictions that support us on our journey of experiencing life mindfully. Today's consideration comes to us from Stephen King and his book, On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft. The quote from the book is, "Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work." I'll read that one more time. Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. Before we consider that, let's go ahead and take a few intentional breaths in. All right, I'm going to take a breath in for 5 seconds. I'm going to hold it for a moment and then breathe out for 5 seconds. I'll walk us through the first one and then we'll do a few on our own. First breath in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on our own. Breath in. And out. And in. One more. Okay. I definitely feel more present after that, and it's rare that I do some intentional breathing and I don't feel more present. I want to remind us of the consideration. Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. Now, when I first read that quote, and in all fairness, this is not just a one-off statement. This is part of a longer paragraph, I'm sure, or a chapter in a book. So I have not read this book. I just saw it in a meme. Perhaps I, at some point, will read this book, but I did appreciate the quote in itself for consideration. So just want to put that disclaimer out there. But the thing that it brought out in me, or the emotion it brought out in me when I first read it, was like, what? Like, you can be mindful or aware, and you can, like, wait to be inspired and still be working. But then I thought about the quote a little bit more and I broke it down. And he says, amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. Now, I guess the just get up and go to work is where the nuance lies for me, because that first part, after I reread it, amateurs sit and wait for inspiration, I was like, okay, after I read it a couple times, sit and wait for inspiration, I think, well, I can sit and I can meditate. Not that meditating is waiting for inspiration. I don't meditate with a goal of being inspired to do something. I'm aware that there are forms of meditation where this is the goal, but very rarely is that a goal of any of my meditations. Mostly because my meditations are primarily mindfulness-based meditations, and it's more about mindfulness of breath, mindfulness of body, and similar concepts like that, versus an end goal. It's just being aware of and coming back to whatever that focal point is. But I guess what Stephen King, I think, is trying to say in that first part is, don't just sit around and wait for inspiration. I would like to add, you can be open to inspiration. You can do things that invite inspiration, but to simply wait and sit around just waiting for inspiration to appear is not always going to be the most effective way to get things done. It depends on what your goals are. If you are trying to be productive as it relates to a specific task, many times you do need to be inspired if it's something relating to creativity. It's hard to be creative just like that. Just turn it on. Some people, they can do it and fantastic. Some people can't. And for myself, sometimes I have a mode where I am just constantly creating new connections as it relates to ideas, and I almost to an overwhelming sense, where other times it just doesn't happen. Um, but I believe we can be open to inspiration and we can invite inspiration in by being aware of our setting, by practicing mindfulness. Um, so we don't want to necessarily use a mindfulness meditation practice as a with a goal of being inspired to do something, but by being aware of our emotions, by practicing a meditation in which we are aware of our breath, aware of our body, and being able to extrapolate from that or translate that meditation practice into everyday mindfulness practices that open up the door for inspiration to come in. Now, I think that is still within the spirit of the quote of Stephen King and still allows us to be productive and to get things done. Real quick on the last part of his quote, the rest of us just get up and go to work. I believe that most of what I talked about in that last part was the second piece of his quote. The rest of us get up and go to work. And the get up and go to work, a mindfulness meditation practice, a yoga practice, a Tai Chi practice, maybe a compassion meditation practice, or whatever type of mindful practice it is that you're engaging in or you want to try out will support that. That is the work. Just waiting for something to happen, very rarely is it going to happen if we're not being intentional or even aware of the fact that we're waiting. As it relates to experiencing life mindfully, putting in the work is tied to three different aspects of mindfulness. At Mindful X, we think of this kind of as the trifecta of mindfulness. One component being mindfulness meditation or mindfulness adjacent meditation. There's a number of meditative practices that support mindfulness, and finding one that works for you is a big component to the trifecta of mindfulness. The second is going to be mindful movement. This might be yoga, Tai Chi, or some other kind of regular practice in which you can communicate with your body, be aware of what your body's trying to communicate to you and to the world at large. And the third is everyday mindfulness. That would be the on-demand mindfulness, the things that you can do in your everyday life, in the moment as situations arise, or right before you go into a meeting where something could potentially arise, and you kind of want to make sure that you are present and prepared for that moment. Now, these three areas, mindfulness or mindfulness adjacent meditation, mindful movement, and everyday mindfulness, are all topics that we consider and dive into on our online platform, which you can find at www.mindfulx.net. Now, this is actually a community, a network of individuals who want to share ideas, to support others, to be supported, find inspiration, all as it relates to experiencing life mindfully. Again, you can find that over at www.mindfulx.net. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. I hope to see you online where we can continue the conversation. As we finish today, I'm going to do a little more mindful breathing. Invite you to join along with me. Again, I'm Justin McBride, and remember, mindfulness is only a few intentional breaths away. As I begin my mindful breathing, I'm going to make sure that I'm sitting upright, or if you're laying down, I encourage you to try to be in a dignified, comfortable manner, but not too comfortable. The goal isn't to fall asleep, it's just to make sure that our body is supported, that we can breathe comfortably as we focus on our breath. I'm going to close my eyes, take my first breath in. Hold it and out. Breath in and out. On your own, breath in